So let me start by asking you a couple of questions. And you can tell me, or tell yourself, because I can't necessarily tell us what you're going to answer me, if these questions resonate with you, or if someone you know as something that relates to this. Have you been labelled as too emotional or too overtly sensitive? If a friend is distraught, do you start feeling it too? Are your feelings easily hurt? Are you emotionally drained by crowds and require time alone to revive? Do your nerves get frayed by noise, smells, or excessive talk? And you don't have to say yes to all of these, it's just something that resonates with you. Do you prefer taking your own car places, your own journeys to different places, so that you can leave when you please? That's like me 101. Some people do overeat to cope with emotional stress. Are you afraid of being engulfed by intimate relationships? So let me just give you context and background if any of these questions resonate with you. So I found out something about myself when I was 30 years old. And if I would have found out like 10, 20 years earlier than that, my life would have been much easier. But as life is and how it was decided, I only found out when I was 30 that the reason that I have always felt very different from the rest of the world, and the reason why my friends are always telling me, oh my gosh, Sharon, stop thinking so much. Why are you thinking so much? Calm down. Is because I am, turns out, wired. I am neurologically wired differently to everyone else, and 2% of the world is wired differently. Our mirror neuron system is overactive compared to underactive, which means that we are called super empaths. Very exciting. The reason why I'm telling you all of this is because it's not discussed, and it's really important, because if you are one of them, or if your teenager is one of them, if your children are, if your father or mother or your best friend is like crazy sometimes, and she thinks too much and she feels too much and she cares too much, it's probably because she's a highly sensitive person and a super empath. Because if we think about what an empath is, like dictionary, empathy is seen as the natural capacity to share, understand, and respond with care to the affective states of others. Plays an important role in social interactions, not only in humans, but in other species. It's seen to be thought to play an important role in pro-social behaviour, inhibiting aggressive behaviour, because we, can interact with other people. And it's found to be fundamental to the development of moral behaviour. Okay, so we've got the science out the way. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Because I, as a teenager, literally felt everything. If my friends were like feeling a little bit sad, because I didn't have enough self-worth, would think, oh, have I done something? And because I could feel it, even if my friends couldn't, I'd be like, oh my gosh, have I done something wrong? Have I done something to upset her? Have I done something dreadful? What can I do to make it better? Etc, etc, etc. Even to the point that if I'd say to my friend, like, is everything okay? And they'd be like, yes, of course it is. But like, I know that there is something that is not quite right, but they're not telling me what it is. I've decided in my head a whole grand plan of what the reason is. I may be right, I may be wrong. That's not the point. But what actually ends up happening is your friends are kind of like, oh my gosh, just leave me alone, it's all a bit weird. And you, because you're feeling everyone's energy and the vibration and their emotions, and you're just feeling it all because you're a super empath, then it's all can get very too much. And actually, as a teenager, they can feel, thank God never really had this, but you can feel depressed. The world suddenly gets too heavy, and actually it's often the case that people who are super empaths will have feelings of depression, will have feelings of, will have anorexia because they're emotionally eating, suicide, because the world is just too heavy. So with all the world that we live in today, and the fact that their information is so much more available than it used to be, I really felt that, like, why is this topic still not discussed? Because I would have known this as a child. If I would have known, I found this out at 30 years old from a video on TikTok. Do you know what I mean? Like, I turned to like other people who I thought, and they're like, yeah, of course, because you're an empath. so you feel too much and you care too much and it's all just there. And I said, well, why didn't anyone tell me? Life would have been so much easier. And why would it have been so much easier? Because I would have appreciated and understood that what I am feeling, first of all, no one else around me is feeling, so they have no idea what I'm talking about. Genuinely no idea what I'm talking about when I'm saying, oh, I'm like so hectic, and my friends come aboard, then, when they say to me, Sharon, stop thinking too much, and I'm spending so much of my time trying to work on myself so that I don't think as much, and so I calm down on things, and that I stop my mind from racing, and I'm working so hard to change who I am, when actually finding out who you are and what your superpowers are and what you're good at and what you're not good at and what's hindering you, when you find out who you are and why you tick and how you tick and why you do what you do, life becomes so much easier. So once I found out at 30 years old, which was 2 years back, that there's this thing called being an empath, a highly sensitive person, and then being an empath, feeling too much, caring too much. And when I say too much, it's not too much, but it's just compared to the rest of the population, life became a million times easier. So, from a scientific perspective, it's the neurophysical link that's the brain-to-brain coupling. Oh, I don't know what that means anymore. I wrote very detailed notes, but I can't say I understand what that is. The neural resonance between your brain and the brains, the bodies, the people, the souls of everyone around you. I'm going to give you some blurb as to being what an empath is, just so that you understand. Empaths are high, and I just literally could have done with this paragraph right in front of me at the time. Empaths are highly sensitive individuals with a keen ability to sense what people around them are thinking and feeling. Psychologists may use the term empath to describe a person that experiences a great deal of empathy, often to the point of taking on the pain, and this is like 101, often to the point of taking on the pain of others at their own expense. However, the term empath can also be used as a spiritual term, describing an individual with special psychic abilities to sense the emotions and energies of others. This particular discussion is focused on both the psychological aspects of being an empath and also the spiritual aspects of being an empath, because let's get into the meat and bones of this. There are actually 6 types of empaths. There is the emotional empath, the physical empath, the intuitive empath, the plant empath, the animal empath, and the earth empath. So once with this information, you're going to be able to look around and, be like, oh yeah, that person's like one with nature and just gets so much peace from nature and just is so much calmer and happier with nature and actually doesn't want to hang out with people as much. They're probably an earth empath. And the person who feels intuitive, senses, oh, this is going to happen, and you think they're really weird and have psychic abilities, but actually they're an intuitive empath, and they have a better relationship with the world. They can sense actually what's going to be coming up in the future, and problems that are coming, and the pain and suffering in third world countries. Someone who's obsessed with plants and has a stunning garden and cares more about making their garden beautiful than the relationships between them and others. Time for a lot of you. Don't worry, you can listen to it another time. I got someone was speaking to me in quite a negative manner, and I literally my heart is racing, and I'm all in chesty in there, and all just clammed up in there, because I'm like, oh my goodness, and does the person like me? And it's just no, but it's not really about me. It's because I want that other person to be happy, and I am then helping towards them not being happy. And so the first tip I'm going to give everyone, because this is a very annoying character trait to have, but it's also very powerful, is care, but do not carry. And I'll say that again. Care, but do not carry. So something I've actually picked up over time, using a lady called Judith Orloff. She wrote a book called The Empath's Survival Guide, because it literally is the survival guide to life. She talks about at the end of every single day, I do this when I remember, I sit there and I say, please, could all the emotions and energies within me that are not mine, that actually don't belong to me, be returned to their rightful owners. And just by like thinking about that, breathing, relaxing, a lot of this residual energy that is not actually anything to do with me, but I've picked up through my day by interacting with other people, caring, listening, talking, a lot of this other people's stuff is given over and back to them. And it's theirs and they'll work through it and they'll figure it out. But it's not my stuff and I can't work through it. So again, point number 1 of like the joys and fun of this all, care, but do not carry. So that's crucial. The next thing, shielding. So pay careful attention throughout the day. Some people, and this sounds really mean, but it's not, they're just not intending to, but they will do it, realize that you attract and help other people. And some people will accidentally, because they're not mean, leech off you and abuse this super ability, if you want to call it. They'll abuse it. So we're talking about narcissists, super leechers, emotional blackmailers. There's a lot of people out there who are dealing with their own trauma, they're dealing with their own psychological situations and events in their life, and that's how they're compensating. They're finding people like us who care too much, who think too much, and they are making the most of it. So, for example, in school, what I should have realised was there were friends around me that actually weren't good for me. That actually made me feel bad at the end of the day. They would say, how could you have done this to me, Sharon? Why did you upset me so much? Why did you do this, X, Y, Z, when I hadn't done anything? But because they could see from our relationship subconsciously that I could give of myself so much to the point that the boundaries were blurred, they then felt that that was my responsibility as their friend to always keep them upbeat, keep them happy, keep them, with a smile on their face. And that is a superpower of the empath, the ability to go into a room and change the vibe, change the environment quite quickly, because, I can go into a room and I can sense this person's feeling sad, this first person's feeling X, Y, Z. I don't know why, but I can, change the subtopic, change the subject, bring in some laughter, and that also comes with it. Sometimes people feel like you should be doing that at all times. I have a particular friend who just has so much joy in her life, and sometimes people feel that when she's at a wedding, like she should be providing the vibe, because she's so amazing at it. But like, it's not her responsibility. She happens to be amazing at it, and because she's just intuitive in that sense, but that's not her responsibility. So my second piece of it's not my advice, it's what I've learnt with time, is pay very careful attention to, is this your emotion? Is it their emotion? And who's feeling what and who's feeling blah. The third piece, and this is very, very, very helpful, is emotions are not negative and they're not positive. They are guides from above to help us along our way. And that is part of my very, the connected with my art, which is, we are all, my art, I make people stop and think. My pieces are massive. I don't know if you can see this piece that I'm working on at the moment. My pieces are massive. They make people stop and think. They are statement pieces. They are just, take a step back and take a moment to ponder. And the emotion, if you're feeling miserable or you're feeling angry, they're just a guide. They're just helping you to navigate. If you're feeling weird about something, maybe this is not the environment, maybe there's something weird going on around you. Assess, and then maybe go on a new path. So that is my third point, which is, if you're an empath, if you care too much and feel too much and are really feeling something, it's not a bad thing that you're feeling these things. It's just helping you. But it may not be helping you. It may be helping the person who is meant to be feeling these things. You're not meant to be feeling these things because those are not your emotions. So again, just offload. You are caring but not carrying. These are not your emotions. These are not your guidance to care about. So with that, I wanted to end with a poem. And this is quite a dark poem. So for those of you who have enjoyed my light approach to this topic, you are welcome to leave. And for those who are interested and curious, you are welcome to stay. It is a very interesting topic that really, a poem that really resonated with me, and I know that it could help other people by reading it through. But again, it's quite dark and depressing in some ways. So don't stay if that won't resonate with you. Okay, so it's by a lady called Imi Lo, who wrote the book Emotional Sensitivity and Intensity. And she talks about how if you are feeling too much and caring too much, then it might come a time actually where you are too enmeshed with the world. You are too much absorbing everyone else's energy, and it's actually difficult to distinguish between self and others. That boundary starts to be broken down. And therefore, if you're feeling too much, caring too much, and can also feel the world too much, there may be feelings of, and you know it's insidious and it seeps in slowly, then there may be feeling that, you know, the world is just too much and it's too heavy. So this is very like, don't freak out. It's called The Fork in the Road for the Empaths. Dear empathic soul, it is terribly challenging to live with little or no filter, to hear every drop of tears from near and far away, to see human and non-human expressions of sorrow, to every day have the world's pain piercing through you, to sensing the lies and hypocrisies when others don't, to feel trapped in your heightened sensitivity and perception. At some point you reach a fork in the road where you have to decide either to stay here with us in this imperfect world, or you float up, dissociate and leave. I bet you've tried them all. The spiritual bypassing, the closing down, the tuning out, the numbing using addictions or dulling through drugs. The desert offers transient tranquility, but eventually led you down a path of emptiness, deep aloneness, meaningless, and eventually despair. And that's the depression that I was talking about before. Boredom is a result of fear. It was all too edgy to sit with, so you left. As you withdraw from the heartache, you also leave behind your hope and your love. At some point, you will reach another fork in the road, where you have to decide to stay or to leave. A yes or no to the marriage with life. It's crazy. It's the marriage with life, because it's just too much. The key to moving forward is commitment. You either commit to being a part of humanity, or you divorce yourself from it all. And side point, this is what happens. Sometimes a lot of people are just so detached from the world because it's too much for them. You might have thought that you were too weak, too porous, too soft for such a commitment. Yet something magical happens when you say, I do. The world clears your path, the intention gives you strength. How does it work? By committing to staying with the world, you must also live with other people's limitations and dysfunctions. Then you come face to face with your shadows and your own dysfunctional parts. Because don't worry, we're all messed up. Your heart softens and you learn the art of unconditional love and acceptance of yourself and others. By committing to cohabiting, oh my gosh, I don't know how to know. Cohabiting a space with others, you deal with the daily irritants, inconvenience and transgressions. In doing so, you come to embrace life for what it is, rather than constantly trying to change it to the way you want it. Eventually, you become strong. With all the terrors comes glory. As your commitment to the world ripens, it rewards you with richness, joy and strength. So you were born an empath. Where do you go from here? Do you rise to the occasion, yield to the path that you were given, let it shape you and allow life to use you as a vessel? Or do you hide, shrink and leave? Ultimately, you root to rise. Not because it's moral or even particularly honourable, but because it is the only way to go. So with that, I send you all my love. I hope this was helpful. For those of you who resonated with it and for those who didn't, don't worry. My husband thinks I'm crazy when I talk about all this stuff, so you're just one you just belong to that category, that's totally fine. But for those of us that it meant something to, what I was discussing, I hope that this was helpful. I hope that this can be the start or the middle of your journey into finding out who you are, or finding out who your friends are, and this can ultimately lead you to lead a better life, a life where you understand yourself, and a life where you can appreciate and remember and discover and remember your superpowers, and have a beautiful life because of it. So in summary, just to remind you again, we talked about care but don't carry. We talked about paying careful attention to enmeshment and boundaries in terms of what's your emotion, what's not your emotion, and what may be others, and that should be returned to their rightful owners. And the third thing we talked about was that emotions aren't necessarily bad or good, they are just our guiding, they're just our guides. Thank you, and have a lovely afternoon.